What you're about to watch is a debate between Patrick Bet-David and Ben Cohen, one of the founders of Ben and Jerry, over the wage disparity in America, specifically how much the top 1% makes versus the rest of the working class. And Ben is somebody who leans a little bit more left or Democrat politically, whereas Patrick, someone more Republican and right-leaning. Let's watch.
What percentage of Americans do you think are willing to work that hard as you? Not that many.
I come across loads of people that are working really, really hard for really low wages. So I had an idea, and maybe I'm good at making ice cream flavors, coming up with ice cream flavors. Somebody else is a really good roofer, and they work really hard roofing.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't they get paid?
You want a roofer to get paid $326 million?
I'm not saying that much. All I'm saying is that what is the minimum wage in the country?
Let's say 15 million, give or take.
The minimum wage.
Let's say it's $7.20.
$7.20.
Sure, but
that should be illegal. That's a poverty wage. We shouldn't be in a country whereby you work 40 hours a week full time and you can't afford to have a decent life.
I agree with you, but let me ask you a question. For the people that get paid $7.25, for those who do, the few that do, why do you think they do?
I don't know how many there are, but I think there's a lot.
But why do you think they only get paid $7? They don't have to say yes to it.
It's the only job they can find.
Why can't they find any other jobs? Think about that. Actually answer that question right. Why can't they find another job? Rob, what's the least amount you ever got paid?
I got to jump in here. Patrick Bet-David is looking at this and saying, basically, what I think he's alluding to here is they're getting paid less because they don't have skills necessary to climb up and make more wages. I look at this and say, hey, what we're not addressing is the climate in America has changed. So many jobs have been shipped overseas by corporations looking to save money by having those jobs in other countries, right? A lot of tech work is moving to countries like India because they can pay the people less. On top of that, manufacturing, we know this. Manufacturing in America has been hollowed out because we manufacture things in China, or rather they manufacture it and then we import it for a fraction. They're getting paid basically slave wages, and then we're losing jobs, which means that our good wages in America are being lost too. So this idea that it's all on the people for not having the skills, or that it's the people's fault making $7.25 an hour, let's not forget the fact that your government hollowed out these jobs. And I also got to go back to the start here where Patrick Bet-David says this.
What percentage of Americans do you think are willing to work that hard as you? Not that many.
He's basically framing this issue saying, look, CEOs are supposed to make a bunch more because they're the ones that work the hardest, they're the ones that work the longest hours. Let's think about this logically. If you're the CEO, you have ownership of your company. You probably should work more hours than the guy who doesn't have ownership and might be getting paid $7 an hour, $15 an hour, even $20 an hour. He doesn't have a stake. He doesn't have ownership. He's not going to be able to get the lion's share of the profits if he contributes millions of dollars to the company. So of course they're not going to work as hard as the CEO.
Rob, what's the least amount you ever got paid?
To calculate, it'd be annually $22,000 a year.
So $22,000 a year divided by, divide four, and how many hours a week were you working, Rob?
50.
Okay, do 50 times 50 is 2,500. Do 22,000 divided by 2,500. $7, $8, and 8.8.
Yep.
So do you make 8.8 right now?
No.
Did you ever think you're going to make the kind of money you're making right now?
Not when I was making $22,000 a year.
Right? So, but when you came here and all of a sudden you're like, well, we can really build something special here, right?
Correct.
But why do we pay you that? Why do we pay, whatever the number you know, why do we pay you what we pay you?
Experience, hard work, what I can do in the future. A combination of all three, I think.
Great, but have you earned it?
Yes.
If somebody
Still earning it, though.
I know you are.
What Patrick's doing here is what he's going to do again in just a minute. He's basically saying, look, if here's a model, if it worked for one person, then it can be true of everybody else. But I think what Patrick fails to take into account here is that the American economy as a whole is taking a hit, right? Wages are down, especially when you consider inflation. Real wages are down for workers. CEOs are getting paid more than ever before. In fact, what I'm going to show you here is a graph over time of how much CEOs in America are making compared to the typical worker in America. And what you see is that workers' wages were growing in line with CEOs for quite a while, But there's starting to be a giant gap developing between how much CEOs are getting paid and how much workers are getting paid. So this idea of there's no systemic problem and, hey, I can point to certain people and say, hey, they got their skills up, they earned more. You're ignoring the broader economic trends.
Somebody right now paid you $7.25. Would you take it?
No,
Why though?
because I've gotten to a place where my hard work is deserved to be rewarded.
That's right. And guess what? Do you if right now this doesn't work out, do you have options?
Yes,
But you like being here.
love it.
Of course. So that's the part. So for me, I have to realize I got to take care of the guy. And then for him, guess what he's got to realize? He's got to bring value. And that's the part when I hear that message sometimes, I'm like, okay, I get it, $7.25. They don't have to say yes to it.
That's nuts. People don't have to say yes to minimum wage. Okay. The problem is that jobs have been evaporating in America. There's less competition for employers trying to get workers than there was before. There's less jobs for workers to be selective between. Why is that? Because again, CEOs have teamed up with government. There's a large monopolization of the private sector in America, where all of this money is going towards the top, which means that there's less competition on the lower side and the middle side of business. And so a lot of jobs are moving overseas due to economic policies of the government, due to policies that are perpetrated by a lot of companies that benefit from having cheaper labor. So to look at this and just say that they don't have to say yes to this is kind of disingenuous, right? Like there's a lot of people in America right now that have to take jobs that they don't want. I know a lot of them because that's the best opportunity in front of them, and they have to try and pay at least some of the bills. So when you look at $7.25 an hour, I'm not necessarily advocating for a higher minimum wage, but to just look at it and go, well, it's the people's fault. They need to learn more skills, kind of ignores all of the systemic trends that people like this in big business have allowed to happen in America through lobbying, that our government has allowed to happen through poor policy.
You know, if you look at the disparity in wealth between black people and white people, I mean, it's kind of huge. And, you know, I mean, the whole country was, it goes back generations.
You're comparing today to the 50s. This is a very different America. I mean, I understand. So the part that I truly want to sympathize with you and empathize with you and understand is the life you've lived. I've not lived your life. So I can't sit there and put myself in your shoes and say, well, you know what? I understand why you have the certain feelings that you have. We all have our own set of stories. I got it. But let's face it, you didn't have enough money where your parents could finance it because you guys had to take a $5 ice cream course to learn how to do this. So it's not like your parents gave you $200,000 to start a business with. Now bring it to me. So now how about me? I wasn't born here, right? Mm-hmm. My parents got a divorce. My dad was a cashier at a 99-cent store. I go in the military and I get out. I had a 1.8 GPA in high school. I'm planning on staying in the military for 20 years. Should I be felt sorry for because my parents got a divorce and I was a welfare kid and I had a 1.8 GPA and I went over there? No, I don't. My dad never felt sorry for me.
Nobody's talking about feeling sorry for you.
Well,
this blows my mind. This gentleman's talking about, the racial issues of black injustice in America. And that's obviously super valid. And I think what he's saying here, even though it was the 1950s where a lot of these housing laws were in effect, is, hey, those have long-term systemic effects. And Patrick Bet-David's looking at this and going, hey, well, I came from disadvantage, but I didn't want anyone to feel sorry for me. It's not about feeling sorry for anybody. It's about saying, hey, there are systemic problems in America. So even if there's a few people like Patrick Bet-David that are going to rise to the top of this system, that's wonderful. We should focus on investing in the individuals and on individual people taking accountability to be able to change their circumstance. But that doesn't negate statistics, man. If the average person is having a harder time today, then there's a problem. You don't just ignore the problem because, I'm an example of someone that could make it. That's great. More people should try to make it, try to build businesses. We can agree on that. But if more people are struggling today than 30 years ago, 20 years ago, we have problems.
But wait a minute. You're saying generational wealth. You know how much money my parents gave to me? 99 cents. But you know what they gave me? I was born in I lived here at 12 years old. I came to America. It's the greatest gift. The greatest gift anybody can give you is being born in America. So you know what I did with that? I went to work, and I made some money.
He's kind of countering his point without meaning to here. He's saying, look, I received this gift of being born in America, so I made the most of it. So you are acknowledging that gifts that your parents give you, these generational gifts, are important or are helpful in getting ahead. But then you're also saying, you know, we shouldn't worry about the fact that there are generational advantages and that we should try and give people who don't have those generational advantages more of a fair playing field to be able to catch up or to be able to build something with their life. It's just very weird.
And I'm not white, and I'm Middle Eastern, and I'm from Iran. And people have called me a lot of weird names while I was in the military. They call me terrorist. They call me this. They call me that because I was in the military, because I have a Middle Eastern look they had never seen when I was in Alabama. Do I really want you to feel sorry for me? I think the part about like looking at it from that standpoint, your argument is the generational wealth argument. Your parents gave you generational wealth and maybe others didn't get it.
I'm not saying that they gave me money. I mean, they were able to pay for college for me.
Do you think even without college, you would have eventually built Ben & Jerry's? What did you learn from college that helped you build Ben & Jerry's? I'm curious.
Man, I just got to say, I'm not somebody who leans left. I'm somebody who's probably pretty libertarian. I consider myself a free thinker. But just watching these two guys debate it, it's like, man, you guys are so out of touch with what it's like to be a working person today. There are major systemic issues that have gotten us here. The working class is struggling. The solution is not just to expect more out of the working class. The solution is to cut the taxes of the working class. The solution is to incentivize more business in America. Why don't we take a look at the policies that got us here instead of making it about, the worker's the problem, the worker's the problem. It's a lot of these policies that are hurting the worker.